Ethan had always been the kind of man who laughed at the universe. In the quiet settlement of Nova Haven, a small human colony on the edge of explored space, he had become known as the daring pilot who could charm both machines and people. His days were spent soaring between asteroid belts and desolate moons, charting paths that no one else dared to explore. His nights, however, were different. They were reserved for stories, jokes, and a little mischief with his friends at the colony's central hall. It was on one of these nights, under the soft glow of artificial stars suspended in the hall's ceiling, that Ethan decided to entertain a ridiculous idea. The hall was crowded with his fellow colonists, laughing and sharing tales of strange encounters during their expeditions. Ethan leaned back in his chair, swirling the cup of a weak alien wine he had grown fond of. "I tell you what," he said, grinning broadly, "I could use a wife. But not just any wife. She should come from the stars, land in a blaze of glory, and say, 'Yes, I will be yours.' Now that would be something." The hall erupted with laughter. His friends hooted, clinking glasses, and teased him for his ridiculous fantasy. Some even joked that he had been spending too much time in the vacuum of space, where his brain might be developing a taste for cosmic absurdities. Ethan laughed along, letting his words float into the room like harmless sparks. Little did anyone know, the universe had an odd sense of humor. Moments after Ethan finished speaking, the laughter was interrupted by a strange hum outside. It was faint at first, like the vibration of a large machine buried deep beneath the colony. Then it grew louder, resonating through the metal floors and walls. The colonists froze, exchanging uncertain glances. Ethan felt a twinge of unease in his chest. This was no ordinary ship arriving. The vibration was too smooth, too precise, almost alive. Then the hall's large windows, designed to withstand meteor storms, reflected a shadow moving across the sky. The night sky, lit by the twin suns of this distant system, seemed to darken in that instant. A sleek, black spacecraft descended with terrifying grace. Its surface shimmered like liquid obsidian, catching the light of the suns in strange, almost unnatural patterns. The colonists gasped. Ethan stood up, his playful smile fading. "This can't be real," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. The ship landed in the central courtyard with barely a sound. Its landing gear sank slightly into the metallic ground, yet the craft remained perfectly balanced. A hatch opened, and from it stepped a figure that seemed both regal and dangerous. Her presence was magnetic, commanding every eye without effort. She was tall, with pale skin that almost glowed under the twin suns. Her eyes were crimson, sharp and intelligent, yet they held a certain curiosity. Her armor was intricate, black with crimson accents that matched her eyes, and it shimmered like liquid night. Every movement she made exuded power and confidence. The colonists instinctively stepped back, unsure whether to flee or bow. Ethan, however, felt his heart pound, not with fear but with a strange mixture of awe and disbelief. "I heard your wish," the figure said, her voice melodic yet carrying an undeniable authority. "I accept." Silence followed. The hall seemed to hold its breath. Ethan's mouth went dry. He had been joking, but this was real. The colonists stared at him, their expressions a mixture of horror, confusion, and fascination. Ethan's friend, Mara, whispered in disbelief, "Ethan, did you just summon her?" I don't know," he admitted, his voice shaky. "I was joking." The figure stepped closer, and the metallic ground seemed to hum under her weight. Ethan noticed her eyes scanning the room, studying each person with a precision that made his skin tingle. She was not here to attack, at least not yet, but she was powerful, more so than anything he had ever seen. "My name is Lilara," she said, bowing slightly, a gesture that seemed both formal and intimate. "I am a Warbride, chosen from a lineage of warriors who serve by forming bonds with mortals of courage and open hearts. Your words summoned me, and I am here to fulfill that bond." The colonists whispered among themselves. Warbrides were legends, beings from neighboring star systems known for their combat skills and strict codes of honor. Stories told of their unmatched loyalty, their centuries-long lifespans, and the devastating power they wielded in battle. Many assumed they were myths, exaggerated tales meant to inspire awe in humans who had never left their home systems. And yet here stood Lilara, real and undeniable. Ethan felt a mix of fear and responsibility. This was no longer a joke. The universe had answered in a way he had never imagined. He swallowed hard. "Why me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lilara's crimson eyes met his. There was a pause, a moment where time seemed to slow. "Because you are brave," she said. "Not because you seek power, not because you crave glory. You speak freely, laugh boldly, and carry no arrogance. Your spirit is rare, it called to me." Ethan felt heat rise to his cheeks. Brave, rare. He had spent his life dodging meteor storms and exploring abandoned planets, but he had never considered himself remarkable. Yet this being, with her centuries of wisdom and combat experience, saw something in him that no one else had. The colonists were uneasy. Some muttered about calling the authorities of the sector. Others wondered if the presence of a warbride would bring danger to their quiet colony. Ethan tried to calm them. She's not here to hurt us," he said, though his voice wavered. Lilara stepped fully into the hall now, her gaze sweeping over every person, every corner. "I do not arrive as a conqueror," she said. "I arrive as a partner, as a protector, but my bond with him is sacred. Any who interfere will face consequences." The weight of her words silenced the hall again. Ethan could feel the tension rising around him. He tried to take control of the situation. I accept," he said, almost automatically, though his mind raced. He had not truly understood what he was accepting. This was no mere companionship. It was a bond that could change his life forever. Lilara nodded, a small smile touching her lips. "Good. Then our bond begins. You will learn and I will teach. There is much you do not understand about the universe and much you have yet to see." Ethan's friends were stunned. Mara, who had always been fiercely protective of him, finally found her voice. "Ethan, this is insane. You can't just—" "I know," Ethan interrupted gently. "I didn't think it would actually happen, but it has. Now we deal with it." Lilara observed him silently, as if measuring his resolve. "You are honest. That is rare," she said. "We begin tomorrow. Today you must rest. Tomorrow your education starts." Even as the words left her lips, Ethan felt a strange thrill. He had dreamed of adventure, of seeing the stars and facing dangers that tested his limits. Yet nothing had prepared him for this. A warrior from legend, bound to him because of a joke, a playful wish that had summoned something extraordinary. That night, Ethan could not sleep. He stared out at the twin suns as they dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of red and violet. Lilara's ship remained outside, its black hull reflecting the fading light. Questions raced through his mind. Who was she really? What did it mean to be bound to a warbride? How would the colony react to this new reality? Yet beneath the fear, there was excitement. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt like he was standing on the edge of something monumental. Something that could change everything he knew about the universe, about himself, and about the meaning of courage and partnership. Morning came, and with it, the first lessons in the ways of a warbride. Lilara was patient but demanding, pushing Ethan to understand the depths of alien combat theory, interstellar survival, and the sacred nature of bonds between species. Each lesson challenged him, but each also drew him closer to understanding her culture, her history, and her perspective on life. By the end of that first day, Ethan realized that the playful wish he had made in jest had been the start of something far greater than he could have ever imagined. A bond had formed, not just of choice, but of respect and courage. And though the challenges ahead were unknown, he was ready to face them, step by step, alongside the vampire Warbride who had answered his joke with a life-changing yes. In the distance, the colony continued its daily routines, still whispering about the strange figure that had arrived unannounced. But Ethan and Lilara were no longer thinking about gossip or fear. They were focused on each other, on understanding, and on the adventures that lay ahead. The universe had opened a door, and they were ready to step through it together. The morning sun rose over Nova Haven, casting long shadows across the metallic buildings of the colony. Ethan woke with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. Last night's events played over and over in his mind. A joke had summoned a legendary Warbride, and now, Lilara, a being of terrifying beauty and power, had chosen to bond with him. He knew his life was about to change forever. Lilara stood outside his quarters, waiting. Her armor reflected the morning light, and her crimson eyes seemed sharper than the sun. She bowed slightly when he opened the door, her movements precise and fluid, yet carrying a grace that made him feel both nervous and awed. "Good morning," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "Are you ready to begin?" Ethan swallowed hard. I think so." He wasn't sure what ready meant when training with a being who had fought in wars that spanned centuries. Lilara studied him for a moment, then gestured for him to follow. "We begin with observation. Understanding the world around you is as important as knowing how to fight within it." They walked through the colony's outskirts to a training ground built for human and alien exercises. The area was open, with simulated terrains that mimicked forests, mountains, and rocky plains from distant planets. Here, Ethan would learn how to adapt to environments far beyond Earth's simple landscapes. Lilara demonstrated first. She moved silently across the terrain, her armor barely making a sound. She scaled a rocky incline, leaped over simulated ravines, and moved with a speed that seemed impossible. Ethan watched, wide-eyed, as she disappeared from view and reappeared seconds later, standing perfectly still, as if the terrain itself had guided her steps. "Your movement must be fluid yet deliberate," she said. "Every step, every breath has purpose. You must learn to trust both your body and your mind. Hesitation can be fatal." Ethan nodded, trying to absorb every detail. He attempted to mimic her movements, clumsily at first. He tripped over rocks, misjudged jumps, and nearly fell into a shallow ravine. Lilara didn't correct him harshly. Instead, she demonstrated patience. "Do not fear failure," she said. "Fear arises only when you do not understand. Learn, adapt, and your mind will guide your body." Hours passed in this way. Ethan struggled, yet with every fall he improved. Lilara watched him silently, occasionally offering tips that seemed minor but made a significant difference. She showed him how to land silently, how to shift his weight to avoid detection, and how to anticipate the terrain. During a break, they sat under the shade of a metallic tree in the training ground. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead and asked, "Lilara, why me? Why did you choose to bond with a human, someone so ordinary?" Lilara's crimson eyes softened, though only slightly. "Ordinary? No. You are not ordinary. You possess courage and curiosity, two traits rare among your kind. You do not seek power, you seek understanding. That is why I am here. That is why we are bonded." Ethan felt a warmth rise in his chest. He had faced storms, cosmic radiation, and dangerous creatures, but hearing such words from Lilara made him feel seen in a way he never had before. He wanted to ask more, but she stood abruptly. "Enough talk. Practice resumes," she said, her voice returning to its commanding tone. "We will now focus on combat techniques." Lilara began by teaching him basic strikes and defensive maneuvers, demonstrating with weapons that were unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. She wielded a blade that shimmered with a strange energy, slicing through the air effortlessly. Ethan tried to replicate her movements with a standard training sword, but he quickly realized that human strength alone was not enough to match her skill. "You are tense," she observed. "Relax. Combat is not about force, it is about flow. Let your instincts guide you and your mind will adjust. Hours turned into days. The training was grueling, yet Ethan discovered strengths within himself he had never known. He could anticipate moves, think several steps ahead, and even adapt some of Lilara's techniques to his human limitations. Lilara noticed his progress, nodding approvingly at each improvement. Outside the training ground, life in the colony continued. Some colonists still whispered about Lilara, some in awe and others in fear. Ethan could hear their speculation, but he ignored it. His focus was on understanding Lilara and preparing for challenges he could not yet foresee. As the week passed, Lilara introduced him to other aspects of Warbride culture. She spoke of honor, loyalty, and the sacred bond between a Warbride and her chosen partner. Ethan learned that this bond was not just symbolic. It involved trust, shared responsibility, and an unbreakable commitment to each other's survival. One evening, after a long day of training, they were practicing in a simulation of an alien forest when a sudden alarm rang throughout the colony. Lights flashed, and automated messages warned of an approaching threat. Ethan and Lilara rushed to the command center. A group of raiders, drawn by rumors of Lilara's arrival, were heading toward Nova Haven. They sought to capture her for their own gain, unaware that she was bonded to a human. The colony's defenses were minimal. Most settlers were not trained for combat of this scale. Lilara's eyes glowed crimson as she assessed the situation. "We have little time. Follow my lead, Ethan. Your training starts now." He nodded, adrenaline surging through him. This was real, the first test of their partnership. The raiders' ships descended, firing energy pulses that illuminated the sky. Ethan could hear the hum of their engines and the distant screams of automated alarms. He took a deep breath, remembering Lilara's lessons about flow and instinct. Together, they coordinated the colony's defense. Lilara moved with precision, deflecting attacks and disarming raiders with a skill that seemed almost supernatural. Ethan, using strategies she had taught him, set traps, guided settlers to safety, and took calculated risks to protect key structures. The battle was intense. Ethan could feel fear clawing at his chest, but Lilara's presence grounded him. She was always near, a constant anchor, and her confidence inspired him to act boldly. When a raider attempted to flank him, Lilara appeared in a blur, stopping the enemy with a swift strike. "You are ready," she said, as they regrouped for the next wave. "Trust yourself." "Trust me, trust our bond." Hours passed, and eventually the raiders were repelled. The colony had suffered minimal damage, thanks largely to the combined efforts of Ethan and Lilara. The settlers, once doubtful, now looked at them with respect and awe. That night, as the colony repaired itself and lights flickered back on, Ethan and Lilara sat together in the courtyard, exhausted but triumphant. Ethan could hardly believe the events of the day. He had faced his first true battle alongside a Warbride, and they had survived. "You did well," Lilara said, her voice softer now, almost human in its warmth. "You adapted, you fought, and you protected. You honor our bond." Ethan felt a surge of pride, mixed with something deeper, gratitude, admiration, and a strange affection. "I couldn't have done it without you," he admitted. You taught me how to see what I couldn't before." Lilara's eyes met his, crimson glowing softly in the night. "And you have taught me as well. Your spirit, your humanity, it reminds me that there is value in courage beyond combat. You have given me a reason to respect more than skill. You have given me trust." In the days that followed, Ethan and Lilara continued their training. They practiced combat techniques, survival strategies, and learned to communicate silently in ways that no one else could understand. Their bond deepened, built not just on necessity but on mutual respect and understanding. Ethan found himself changing. He moved with more confidence, thought with greater clarity, and felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. Lilara, too, seemed to soften, revealing glimpses of curiosity and even humor in moments of quiet reflection. Together, they were becoming more than pilot and Warbride. They were a team, capable of facing dangers that the colony had never imagined. One evening, Lilara led Ethan to the edge of the colony, where the landscape stretched into a vast expanse of alien plains and rocky outcrops. The twin suns were setting, casting a golden-red hue over the terrain. She looked at him seriously. "There will be more challenges," she said. "Bonds like ours are tested in ways that cannot be predicted, but you are ready, and I will not let harm come to you. Together, we will face whatever comes." Ethan nodded, feeling a strength within him he had never known. The playful wish that had summoned a warbride was no longer a joke. It was a beginning of adventure, of danger, and of a partnership that could change everything he had ever known about life and courage. As the suns dipped below the horizon, Ethan realized that he was no longer just a human pilot in a distant colony. He was a bonded partner to a legendary vampire warbride, a guardian of the colony, and a man who had discovered that courage and trust could forge bonds stronger than the harshest stars. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the colony's walls, the universe waited, filled with threats, mysteries, and challenges that only Ethan and Lilara together could face. The colony of Nova Haven had never seen a threat like this. Rumors of Lilara's arrival had spread through nearby star systems, and with them came danger. A large fleet of raiders, drawn by the tales of a legendary warbride bonded to a human, approached the settlement with a single goal: capture Lilara and take the colony's resources. Ethan awoke early, the hum of the colony's defenses filling the air. He felt a strange calm settle over him, the kind of focus that only comes when one has been tested before and survived. Lilara was already on the observation deck, her crimson eyes scanning the horizon, her posture radiating confidence. "The fleet is larger than expected," she said without turning. "They have come prepared. This will test every lesson we have practiced." Ethan nodded. He understood that this was no longer a training exercise. Every strategy, every skill he had learned from Lilara would be put to the ultimate test. Together, they walked to the command center, coordinating with the colony's limited defense forces. Lilara's presence alone inspired awe. Humans and alien settlers alike instinctively followed her guidance. As the raiders' ships appeared on the horizon, their energy weapons sparking in the thin atmosphere, Ethan felt the weight of responsibility. He had once joked about a wife from the stars. Now he was leading the defense alongside her, the bond between them unspoken but undeniable. Lilara moved like a shadow across the command deck, directing energy shields, automated turrets, and human fighters with precision. "Ethan, take the northern flank. Their strategy is predictable. They will attempt to divide and overwhelm us. Your speed and creativity can counter it." He acknowledged her instructions and leapt into action, maneuvering small defense ships with skill he had honed under her guidance. Every decision he made felt amplified by her presence. She did not fight for him but beside him. Her guidance and trust gave him confidence he had never experienced. The first wave of raiders descended. Energy blasts lit the sky, shaking the ground beneath Nova Haven. Lilara moved like a living weapon, deflecting attacks and cutting through enemy lines. Her blade emitted energy pulses that shattered raider armor with ease. Ethan coordinated with human pilots, using tactical maneuvers she had taught him, guiding them to strike weak points and avoid unnecessary risks. Time seemed to blur as the battle raged. Ethan could feel the strain in his muscles, the pounding of adrenaline in his veins, and yet he felt more alive than ever. Every action, every decision, flowed naturally. He began to anticipate movements before they happened, a skill Lilara had emphasized as vital in battle. At one point, a massive raider ship broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for the colony's energy core. Ethan realized the danger immediately. Without hesitation, he piloted his small craft toward the ship, weaving through enemy fire. Lilara appeared beside him, moving with impossible speed, and together they executed a coordinated strike. The raider ship exploded in a shower of sparks and metal, neutralized before it could damage the colony. The colonists watched in awe. They had doubted Lilara, feared her power, and even questioned Ethan's judgment, but now they saw what humans and warbrides could achieve together. Fear transformed into admiration, and hesitation into trust. As the battle continued, Ethan and Lilara began to work with an unspoken rhythm. He noticed subtle shifts in her movements, tiny cues that guided his actions. She responded to his decisions with equal precision. It was no longer teacher and student, or warbride and human. They were partners, their bond forged in fire, trust, and mutual respect. Hours passed, and the raiders' fleet was gradually pushed back. The defenders of Nova Haven had suffered damage, but they had prevailed. The final raider ship, a massive command vessel, attempted to retreat. Ethan and Lilara pursued it, cutting off its escape routes. With a final coordinated strike, the ship was disabled, its crew surrendering or fleeing. The battlefield fell silent, save for the hum of emergency systems and the distant groans of damaged structures. Ethan and Lilara stood together, surveying the aftermath. The colony had survived. They had survived. And through it all, their bond had grown stronger, tested by fire and challenge, unbroken and unyielding. Lilara turned to Ethan, her crimson eyes softer now, almost human in their warmth. "You have done well," she said, "not just in battle but in understanding. You are more capable than I imagined, more human than I ever expected." Ethan felt a mixture of pride and humility. "I couldn't have done it without you. You guided me, taught me, and trusted me. That's why we succeeded." Lilara smiled faintly. "Trust is earned, not given. And you have earned it. Our bond is no longer just a ritual or a lesson. It is real. It is living, and it will guide us through what comes next." The colony began to recover. Repairs were made, injured settlers were treated, and the leaders of Nova Haven held a council to discuss the future. Lilara and Ethan were invited to speak. Standing before the assembly, Ethan felt a surge of confidence. He had grown since the day she had landed, from a playful, reckless pilot into a leader who could stand alongside a being of legend. He spoke of courage, trust, and partnership. He emphasized that the Warbride bond was not just a story or a myth. It was a union of respect, understanding, and shared purpose. Lilara's presence beside him reinforced every word. The colonists listened, inspired by the union of human ingenuity and Warbride power. Over the following days, life in Nova Haven began to normalize, though nothing would ever be the same. Ethan continued his work as a pilot, but now with Lilara by his side. She trained others, shared her knowledge, and protected the colony from threats that might emerge from the depths of space. Their bond became a symbol, not just of survival, but of what could be achieved when courage and trust bridged species and worlds. Ethan found moments of quiet reflection, standing with Lilara on the edge of the colony, watching the twin suns rise and set. "Do you ever regret choosing me?" he asked quietly. Lilara's crimson eyes met his and she shook her head. "Regret? No. I chose you because you embody something rare, bravery without arrogance, curiosity without recklessness, and a heart that does not bend to fear. That is why we are bonded. That is why I will remain at your side." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. He realized that what had begun as a playful joke, a whimsical wish, had become something far greater. He had been given a partner, a teacher, and a friend who would walk beside him through dangers he could not yet imagine. He had been given trust, and in return, he had given it back. The colony thrived under their guidance. Raiders rarely attempted to return, deterred by the combined might of human ingenuity and Warbride skill. Nova Haven became a beacon in the system, a place where humans and allies from other worlds saw that courage, trust, and partnership could overcome even the most formidable threats. Ethan and Lilara's bond deepened beyond training or battle. They shared quiet moments in the stars, exploring uncharted planets together, laughing at small, human absurdities and learning from one another. Ethan taught her about human music, stories, and humor, while Lilara showed him the history of her people, strategies of war, and the philosophy that guided her kind. One night as they stood on a cliff overlooking a shimmering alien ocean, Lilara placed her hand on Ethan's shoulder. "We have faced many challenges," she said softly, "but the universe is vast and it will continue to test us. Are you ready for whatever comes next?" Ethan smiled, feeling a strength he had never known. "With you by my side, I know we can face anything." Lilara's eyes softened, and for the first time she allowed herself a full, genuine smile. "Then let us continue together, as partners, as equals, as something more than what either of our worlds could have imagined." As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting their golden light across the water, Ethan realized that he was no longer just a human pilot, nor was Lilara just a legendary warbride. They were a team, a union of courage, trust, and respect. Together, they had faced danger, forged an unbreakable bond, and discovered that even in the vastness of the universe, partnership and loyalty could be the strongest force of all. The stars above shone brighter that night, reflecting the new beginning for Nova Haven, for Ethan, and for Lilara. They had faced the storm and emerged stronger. The playful wish that had summoned a warbride had transformed into a partnership that would endure the challenges of the cosmos, proving that courage, heart, and trust could bridge even the greatest divides. And somewhere in the endless expanse of space, new adventures waited. But Ethan and Lilara, bonded by choice and strengthened by experience, knew that no matter what came, they would face it together, their lives intertwined in ways neither had ever imagined. The colony slept, the stars shone, and the bond between human and warbride became legend, not of fear, but of hope, courage, and the extraordinary power of trust and partnership.